Welcome to the Wolf Mother podcast. My name is Dana Harkis, and as always, we will take 3 deep breaths together. So, deep breath in, softly out, in again, softly out. Last time, deep breath in, we'll hold it at the top. And as you hold it for just a moment, soften your shoulders, soften your jaw, soften the space in between your eyebrows if you can, and let that breath go. Today's topic is going to be relationships. And I don't mean romantic relationships, I mean like the overarching all relationships. So first and foremost, I'm super excited to be having this conversation. I'm so grateful. At the end of last year, it was really cool to see how many people had listened to this podcast, specifically on Spotify. And there were some people who were checking it out on YouTube that were either emailing me about it or were actually leaving comments. And so I just wanted to say, before I really get into the juice of it, thank you so much for being here, whether you're listening on another platform, watching on YouTube. It just really means the world to me. And so relationships, I mean the overarching. I don't necessarily mean romantic relationships, although romantic relationships can fit this. But we want to talk about our friendships. We want to talk about our family relationships. We want to talk about our co-working relationships. We want to talk about relationships in terms of community. And so the reason why is because last night, this has been just a really big topic that has been so present that I've been speaking to with my one-to-one clients, some of my friends, and then last evening I saw someone made a post on Instagram. They made a graphic, and basically it said relationships are conditional. And a lot of the comments, which I totally agree with this, we're saying love is unconditional. However, relationships are conditional. And I don't know if you've seen those videos of people talking about, I'm a low maintenance friend. And then there will be a lot of comments talking about the idea, there's a difference between being a low maintenance friend and being a friend who doesn't put in any fucking effort, right? So there's a lot that goes into this. And the reason why I think I have this conversation often with community members, my clients, some of my closest friends, is because when we start doing this type of spiritual work, when we start doing this type of self-help work, when we start going to therapy and we start doing shadow work, right? Or we just start taking a really good look at ourselves, it can be difficult to continue relationships that we've had for a long time, because if you are someone who is not completely, but if you are someone who is dedicated to sitting with themselves and looking at themselves and working on themselves and understanding relationships on a deeper level, understanding what it means to have a bird's eye view, it can be very difficult to be in some sort of relationship with someone who doesn't know how to take accountability, who doesn't know how to apologize, and not the ass backwards apology. You know what I'm saying? A genuine apology. It's difficult to stay in those relationships with people. And also the other thing is just relationships change. And I think one of the most difficult things for people to sit with on this path and on this journey is recognizing that relationships serve us a purpose until they don't. Relationships serve us a purpose until they don't. Every relationship that we have with someone in our life teaches us either something about us that we want to be, that we want to bring in more of it, or it does the opposite and it teaches us what we don't want to do. And that's a really difficult concept, because we want relationships to be, especially if we've been friends with people for a long time or they're our family members, we want those relationships to last for a long time. But the reality is, when they are not serving us, it is important to take that step back and really be okay, there is a grieving process to this. There's a grieving process of me grieving this friendship or this relationship in general. And then there's also me grieving the person that I was when I was with this person. There's this grief piece of also letting go of this person. So in relationships, all relationships, we also play a role. And so the idea that relationships are conditional they do require some sort of effort. Now, I can use an example for me is that I have a friend that I've been friends with since I was in elementary school, and her and I do not speak on any sort of regular basis, but we just have an understanding. It's a low maintenance friendship. There's always a happy birthday and a happy holidays, and there are the random, I was praying for you this morning, I saw this and I thought of you, I love you so much. And sometimes the other person doesn't respond, right? Like we're busy. It's a low maintenance friendship. But that's the nature of the relationship at this point. I have other friendships that I'm invested in, if not daily, almost daily, or friendships that for weeks we can be talking to each other nonstop. And then maybe there's like, for me, if you know that I host retreats, in December, I had came back to Peru. I was hosting a retreat. In January, I was obviously tired after the retreat. So there was like a whole month where I was just like, I don't want to talk to anyone. And so the friendships that I have that are more, we talk on a regular basis, all understood, okay, Dan's busy, she's tired. But we'll get back to that place. And I'm not really sure. There's so many ways I could go with this conversation because there are so many different people that I've been having this conversation with. And so all people are different, but something that I've seen a lot more recently in my clients specifically is people saying their friends don't put in any effort, or their family members don't put in any effort, or community members don't put in any effort, whatever relationship they are to you. It's just people not putting that effort forward. And that becomes the point for you where you get to sit back and assess, am I comfortable with this person not putting in effort, and me also taking a step back and not putting in effort, right? Because you want everything to be as even as possible. Of course, we know this. There are certain relationships where someone's really going through something and you really want to be supportive of them through that time. So maybe it's not as even as you would like. But let's say none of those big life changes or big life things are happening at that point in time. You want it to be as even as can be, right? So if this person is not putting in as much effort, can you step back? And can you be grateful for what maybe the relationship once was and be grateful for what the relationship is now? Now, in some instances, you're going to say, okay, you know what? You're not putting in a lot of effort. I'm going to take the step back and we're just going to, have a bit of distance between us. But there are also going to be relationships where you're going to say, I just don't want to continue this anymore. What the fuck is the point of this? And that's also really valid. And so, and the nature of that relationship, there may be nothing that was bad that created this separation, but the relationship is ending its lifespan, so to speak. And it can shift, because there are people that I'm not friends with anymore like I used to be. But if I saw them, of course, I would say, hey, how are you? How's it going? And wish them well. There are, of course, other people where you're like, you can fuck yourself, right? Like some relationships don't end on a good note, and that's all right. But thinking of all relationships in terms of when you're dating someone and that road starts to get thinner and thinner, and you're like, we're nearing the end. And so that's when you have that moment to take the step back and to understand the relationship is conditional. My love for you may be unconditional. Maybe it's not. I don't know what happened. But I need to assess what this is for me. I cannot stress the grief portion enough. And of course, this conversation's a little bit hard because I can't speak to you directly. And I don't know what your experience is. So whatever platform you're listening on, if you want to leave a comment and if there is something that you resonate with, maybe I can speak into it a little bit more. But like overarching, the amount of grief that comes with relationships shifting and changing is astronomical. And people sometimes don't realize that because in our minds, grief, for a lot of people, the idea of grief comes with the loss of a person when they pass on in death. specifically, right? But what we're really talking about here is there's a death of relationships that happen. And that's all right, because this is, I mean, I'm saying that's all right because this is what happens in life. Our relationships shift, our relationships change. But it's difficult. So give yourself that space and grace to recognize, okay, maybe I wasn't dating this person, but our relationship is changing and our relationship is ending, whether they are a family member or just a friend or someone you consider to be close in your community. This is shifting. And so what does this mean for me going forward? I can respect the relationship enough to also respect myself. And that's what I keep bringing it back to when I'm talking to my clients is by you respecting the motion of this relationship, you are also respecting the motion of yourself. We are constantly changing. And that is such a gift, even though I know most people hate fucking change, and I get that. However, if you didn't change, you wouldn't grow and you wouldn't learn. So we want the relationships that we have with people to change and grow and sometimes die off and sometimes just shift into something else. And it is important to remember when we do all this work that is reflective, it's very lonely, or it can be, right? There are some people that it's not lonely for them. They find community and they are held by community and all their friends are kind of doing the same thing, and that's beautiful. But there are many people on the path who are lonely and who don't have people to confide in. And so if you find yourself in that position, remembering, I am making space for something new, for someone new. And I know this one also sucks to hear, but it's the whole quality over quantity thing. I grew up in a place where, for me, there was tons of quantity, but not necessarily quality. So I've had a really difficult time having to shift all my relationships, because I've had to understand that for myself, that just because I'm not surrounded by tons of people anymore doesn't mean that I'm not loved, doesn't mean that I don't have people in my life. It's just a major mindset shift for myself. When we, how do I want to say this? When we continue on this journey, giving ourselves the understanding that we do need to make space in our life for more people who can hold us in a greater way. And so to close this talk out, I have been using, it has happened probably about 2 weeks ago, I started using this example of a pizza pie. And so when you have a pizza pie, there's 8 slices. However, some people just fucking, where one slice is, they'll just slice and slice and slice. You know those people that have like little slivers of pizza? It's like, what the fuck are you eating? You're not even having just have the slice, you know? They're like, I want a half of a half of a half. Like, then eat something else. So if we keep cutting that slice down and down and down, and I want you to think of that as relationships. If you're thinning down those relationships, if they're not really serving you and they're not one big beautiful slice of pizza that is supportive to you, that is inspiring to you, that holds you, that respects you, your time and what you do, you're just gonna have these little fucking thin pieces of pizza that realistically do nothing for you. They don't satiate you in the end. I hope that analogy makes sense, because it makes sense in my mind, which is why I keep using it. And so sometimes, instead of having all those little slices there, we just have to take the whole fucking slice away, or all those little slices away, to make room for a new slice to move in. And so whether that is romantic, platonic, familial, maybe even your coworkers, relationships are difficult. And we are complex as human beings. So lots of space and grace. Thank you so much for listening on whatever platform you're listening to this on. If there's anything that you would like to hear me speak into, please reach out to me. Let me know. Comment, like, share, whatever it is, platform that you're listening on. It makes a huge difference getting these conversations out there. So many blessings to you and to yours. And I'll see you guys soon.